Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to this morning edition of Ramola D Reports. I'm Ramola D, and I'm here this morning with a very illustrious and honored guest. This is Galina Kurdina, who is the founder of the Organization of Victims of Psychotronic Mind Control Weapons in Canada. She is based in Canada, and she's here today to both speak about her own story, her own experience with psychotronic mind control weapons and with neurotechnology, as well as discuss one very prominent case that we both have been reporting on to some extent, and we both have had interaction with certain main persons in the story, and that is the story of Rohinie Bisesar. So we'll be talking about that shortly. But first of all, let me introduce Galina to you. Galina is a former information technology professional who came to Canada from Russia many years ago, but unfortunately was targeted with this neurotechnology, was, roped into non-consensual experimentation and suffered many disabilities and therefore is unfortunately disabled currently. But we are going to hear the whole story from her in depth. So good morning, Galina. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Good morning.
So will you help our listeners a little bit to understand some of your life in Canada first? When you first came from Russia, things were fine, right? Nothing had happened. You were going on with your career. You were a professional. You were just going to your daily job, right?
Okay, when I came to Canada, left Russia for Canada in 2004, situation in Canada was very difficult regarding jobs. A lot of immigrants, and it was very, very difficult to find an IT job in Toronto. So I went to several colleges, took several courses, and tried to get a job as an IT professional through this venue. I volunteered in one organization, so I just I didn't have a full-time job, but of course I was focused on education, Canadian education, in order to get some Canadian experience, because it was impossible to find a job in Canada without Canadian experience. They demanded Canadian experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I came in 2004, and at the end of 2005, I was directed by my former family doctor, Dr. Plum. I was directed to one-day examination, just examination,
Okay.
There was nothing serious.
Okay.
But after this, it was the end of December 2005. And after this examination, I developed a bunch of very, I must say, extremely strange symptoms during 2 days. It's better to say I developed them during several hours.
Oh my goodness.
I started hearing voices, getting visual images, induced thoughts, induced feelings, emotions, perceptions, loss of memory, forced speech, involuntary body movements, induced actions, such unusual for any psychiatric disease. I experienced pressure. Sometimes I almost fainted because of this pressure. My feeling was I was pressed on my head, especially crown, forehead, and temples. Blurred vision, loss of balance, coordination of movements, and so on.
And did this all happen just over a space of a few hours? And did everything happen all at once?
I developed all these symptoms, whole bunch of these symptoms during several hours. Okay. This is the main difference between psychiatric diseases that demand
develop over time, right?
Develop over maybe months, weeks, months, or years, and psychotronic attacks. Perpetrators gain control over minds and bodies of their victims in hours, in several hours. And sorry, I cannot remember names of these people, but nowadays victims testify that perpetrators may get control over their bodies, whole bodies, in minutes. And
it's
of
very
course,
interesting that all of this happened to you just after you went to the doctor, and then
yes, this one-day examination with full anesthesia, yes, in the polyclinic in Toronto, at the intersection of Dufferin and Finch. We call this polyclinic Jewish because almost all doctors in this polyclinic are Jewish, so maybe people will find out. Address 4646 Dufferin Avenue in Toronto.
Okay, all right. So you're publishing the information so other people can help with the investigation, perhaps, and find out
Yes, why not?
what's really
Why
going
not?
on in this medical clinic, right?
They must be aware. But before this examination, I must say to you that I rented an apartment, basement apartment, in a house where landlords were people of Chinese origin.
Okay.
And son of these landlords, he said to me that a tenant, another tenant in this house worked for Chinese government for 10 years. And when these symptoms developed, when they started, I saw this tenant, his name was Li Chen, directly involved in this experimentation. Just what I received over microwave hearing, I mean over these psychotronic attacks, matched what was happening on the first floor. I was in basement, I lived in basement, on the first floor of this house. I just activities on the first floor. And what I received through microwave hearing.
I see. So you were hearing it in two ways. You were hearing it as happening just upstairs, and also they were pumping this info through, you know, microwave hearing into your skull.
Yes, and these activities, they matched each other. So I went to police and I reported about this. That's something, I called it radiation. I didn't know. In January 2006, I even didn't know any of these terms. I didn't know what psychotronic. I didn't know anything about mind and body control, electronic harassment, nothing. I just came to police and I said that I was radiated. Something like radiation was influenced me, affected me. And of course, I called name of Li Chen. Yes, I described all these symptoms. Police officers, they refused to investigate. Actually, I reported the name of this perpetrator, Li Chen, and landlords who were involved, or at least were his infrastructure, helped him and other perpetrators who lived in this house, because from January 2006 to March 2006, for 3 months, January, February, and March, perpetrators were lived or visited for long periods of times. This house at 73 Mossbrook Crescent in Toronto, in Scarborough.
Okay.
Yes. So I reported all this to Canadian police and RCMP. They knew everything. They knew address, names, everything, my symptoms. So Canadian government and its institutions, police, RCMP, they were perfectly aware about these crimes, about this crime, but they did nothing. So it proves that Canadian government at least sanctioned these crimes, at least, maybe more. It was involved in these crimes.
Galina, can I ask you just a couple of things? Did you actually relay to the police all of the very many things that you were experiencing that were being done to you?
Yes.
Voices, the images, the forced speech, all of that?
Yes, yes. Maybe not everything in January, but when I called RCMP in spring 2006, yes, I described everything. And RCMP officer, I want to say to you that I cannot even remember what, I just remember this word radiation, but I was traumatized, severely traumatized in January 2006. It was like lightning in my left temple and left part of forehead, and I lost my ability to read. I just
Oh,
saw blood.
yes, you've told me about this. And, actually, this is a major event. Perhaps you should actually describe it in great
Yes.
detail. I think you told me you were just walking along the road one day and you were
Yes,
hit.
yes, 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 yes.
Mhm.
I just was outside and I experienced something like a stroke of lightning in my left part of forehead and left temple. And after that, I was deteriorated. My speech was deteriorated. I spoke, and when I came home, I saw bloody letters. I tried to read just to check my state.
Mhm.
I saw bloody letters. I didn't understand meaning of well-known Russian and English words in well-known books. I just saw this.
All of a sudden, all of your cognitive processes had been so damaged that you could not read.
I could not read. I forgot meaning of well-known Russian and English words completely. I didn't recognize them. So on the 20th, as I can remember, on the 21st of January 2006, perpetrators over microwave hearing, they offered me the first treatment. Uh, I experienced something like waves and beams in my head. It didn't help. But in February, they offered me another treatment, everything over microwave hearing. Just they offered me go to bed, relax, and I felt something like acupuncture in my left, like needles, touched my skin.
Mhm.
And I don't know, maybe this acupuncture in quotes, maybe just several time, but eventually I started feeling better, and I recovered and I restored my ability to read and understand. But it
Very
was,
interesting, Galina.
but it was trauma. It was really trauma.
Yeah.
And when I called our CMP officer, I described everything. I was more or less okay in spring 2006. So I was coherent, I was detailed, I was rational. His name, as I can remember, was Stephen Frith. And he listened to me and said to me, there are no laws to defend you. And I do not see any criminal in this situation. So he denied
Oh my
any
goodness.
investigation. But in 2000, as I can remember, just let me double check, it happened, just a moment.
It's very
Uh,
interesting though that an attorney would say to you, there are no
yes,
laws to defend you. None.
okay, of course they lied. Of course they lied.
Yeah.
A lot of laws: assault, battery, breach of privacy, torture,
Mhm.
health damage, whatever,
Stalking, many laws, I'm sure.
stalking, harassment, a
Mhm.
lot of laws. So of course he obviously lied. But at the end of 2008, I reported all my symptoms, all what happened to me in writing on RCMP website, and I forced RCMP to start investigation.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Yes, they came to 72 Lee Chan at
Mhm.
73 Mossbrook Crest in Scarborough, Ontario, and they talked to him. There was one conversation.
Okay.
Corporal Clamp called me after this conversation and said to me that he confessed that he had studied psychotronic weapons and their influence on psyche of people. After this, RCMP immediately stopped investigation, because if they had continued it and
Mhm.
found out perpetrators, uh, it would have proved their negligence, because for the first time, I reported to them in 2006. So,
Right.
yes, in 2009, they preferred to stop any investigation after this confession, stop everything.
This guy had actually confessed to the police that he had worked in China using psychotronic mind control weapons.
Not him, not him. His friend,
His friend.
son of landlords,
Okay.
said to me that he had worked for Chinese government for 10 years. So, of course, I can just theorize, I can maybe just restore events, but maybe he brought some equipment to Canada. Maybe he affected me even before 2006, because I experienced strange symptoms even in 2005, but they were more or less mild in comparison to what happened to me in 2006. I experienced something like lack of oxygen, insomnia, headaches, loss of memory, but mild symptoms. I even moved my bed at night time just to try to find better position, just to come down and have some rest. But it may be because what I heard at the beginning of 2006, when people speaking Russians who spoke Russian, when they joined this Lichan in 2006, I heard their activities, I heard their speech, and even they exclaimed, something extraordinary or miracle, something like that. Maybe they just found something, and instead of to stop these crimes committed against us, these experiments, they joined them. That's why police, RCMP, and other government institutions in Canada, they covered these crimes. But I don't know. But one more time, I reported, gave names, addresses, everything to police more than 100 times. Okay.
Several times you've gone to the police, it sounds like.
10 times. I reported to police, I reported to RCMP, I sent, I may say, 200 letters to Canadian Parliament, Canadian government. I saw many politicians.
Letters are online. Yeah, many of the letters.
I saw many politicians in person, Canadian politicians in person, and members of parliament. We collected, we presented 2 petitions in the Canadian Parliament and House of Commons. The first petition in 2011, I and my comrades collected more than 1,000 signatures for this petition against misuse of psychotronic weapons. And in this year, in 2018, we collected, the second petition was presented in the House of Commons against misuse of psychotronic weapons on innocent civilian people without their informed consent. And we collected more than 3,000 signatures for this petition. And people, just regular people, they are perfectly aware about these technologies. They say to me, I may say to you that more than 90% of people, regular, ordinary people in Canada, they are aware about these technologies, they support us. And even when somebody comes to me and say, oh, it's something from sci-fi, very often it is obvious that these guys, they just play fools.
There are some people who are very uninformed.
This is a stage theater performance that somebody just intentionally approaches us and says such things. Of course, one more time, you can go and read about brain-machine interface on DARPA official website. Tons of projects to advance brain-machine interface, chips, implants in human bodies,
All of this is coming out right now. Neural dust, you know, wireless transmitters and so forth.
Yes, yes. For example, Neural Lace project
And the Neural Lace project, the
of
Neural
Elon
Brain,
Musk.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, yes. Businessmen invest money in this technology. But quantity of this money, I talked to a neuroscientist in Toronto, and quantity of this money indicates that it's not nearly enough to develop theories and technologies. They just take these technologies, they hire specialists from military organizations, including DARPA, and they used well-tested, well-debugged technologies from military, and if it may be said, wash them.
Absolutely. It seems very clear that, you know, a lot of these commercial applications and makers, such as Elon Musk,
Yes.
are actually making use of information that has been derived from covered research, from covered
Yes.
agencies in the
Yes.
military and in the intelligence. So
Yes.
it's completely unethical, totally
Yes.
across the board unethical. And
Yes.
this is based on barbaric and inhumane experiments, as you are describing, Galina. You know,
Yes.
obviously this is not ethical to simply grab people off the street and start hitting them with lightning bolts and then
Yes.
start giving them treatments, which, you know, they never asked for their brains to be damaged in the first place.
Yes.
So very bad. I have so many questions about what you just said. I wanted to ask, you said you spoke to many politicians. What was the reaction? Which politicians? I mean, can you mention a couple names? And what did they say to you when you mentioned all this, about the use of neurotechnology on people?
Okay. Ramola, just give me 1 second. Maybe I will find name of this politician. Just a moment.
No worries. Yeah, because
Just a
that's
moment.
one area.
I talked to a member of provincial parliament of Don Valley East, David Kaplan. I talked to my current member of parliament, my representative, Mr. John McKay. And actually, he tabled our two petitions in the House of Commons in 2011 and in 2018.
Oh, that's excellent. He made
Yes.
some good steps forward there.
Yes, I talked to, there was such a liberal politician from Liberal Party, as I can remember, his name was Ignatieff. Russian surname, but he wasn't Russian, just somebody of his ancestors was from Russia, Ignatieff.
Okay.
And he said to me, it's such a shame that such experiments are carried on in Canada on innocent civilian people.
You know, Galina, this is extraordinary disclosure, actually. If you could write down what these politicians said to you and that, you know, when it was exactly, we can, you know, use this information and add it to our list of, you know, various people in authority who have been spoken to, who've gotten the information and who have acknowledged it, because they're very well aware that this is indeed going on, right?
Ramola, dear, you can take names of Canadian members of Canadian Parliament in 2011 and 2018, sorry. And all of them were and are aware, and they do nothing, and they do nothing.
And they do nothing.
Yeah, they
yes.
were officially
informed, formally informed. Formal notification has been given to them, but
absolutely. I do not talk about meetings and conversations with journalists, with media people. There were, I don't know, maybe even not hundreds, but thousands of such letters, meetings, because we mailed. Some people even spent their money and sent registered letters to a Canadian government. I personally sent registered letter to the United Nations organization. I sent them our first petition, with text and all signatures. So, and their response was when I called them, we are checking signatures, because there are more than 1,000 signatures. So we are checking every signature in your petition. And after that, yes,
Wow.
their answer, yes, we check the signatures.
Yeah, they're checking the signatures, and having checked the signatures, what do they conclude? I mean, if people are stepping forward and
As soon as they found this, that all signatures were real, that everything was honest, everything was proper, they immediately stopped any investigation. So they checked my signatures,
Okay, so that seems to be what's going on. It appears that you and the people in your organization and others, whom you're associated and affiliated with, have made huge efforts to inform the so-called authorities. And investigations have been stopped, no really useful responses have been given, and the experimentation hasn't stopped either, right?
No, it became even worse. Now I can say to you, not me, but many people, many victims describe that they are victims of the experience insomnia. They're literally tortured with insomnia, because if you sleep 2-3 hours per day, it may be considered as a torture. They destroy our health. I don't know, maybe this is a part of experimentation, or maybe this is like something like punishment. They try to destroy our health and literally kill us with this insomnia.
It appears there's many, many theories as to why people are being tortured. One is apparently this is all trauma-based mind control based on the CIA experiments, and they feel they can map the brain better if they traumatize the person.
Yes,
so there's a lot of pain signaling that's, activated in the brain. That's one theory. And then the other theory is that this is torture, and there's some Luciferian thinking behind this. They do want to torture a few people in the populace, and they've gotten their hands on the stealth weaponry, and they're using it to torture people silently in their homes without the knowledge of sometimes their own families, but definitely their neighbors and so on and so forth. And there are other theories as well as to why people are being tortured. And given sleep deprivation, there's neuromodification going on. They're trying to actually change people's behaviors.
Yes.
Right, and they're trying to isolate people socially and create the symptoms of psychiatric disease. So they're trying to create mentally ill people. They're trying to create schizoid people.
Of course.
And then there's also the MK Ultra radio hypnosis theories, which suggest they're also trying to break up people into alters and disassociate them so that they can use these people. This is the Delta programming theory, where they can use these people in mass shootings and so on and so forth.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot going on. I wanted to ask you though, Galina, how did you first, when this started happening to you, clearly you were working on your own, you were informing the RCMP, etc. But then how did you come in contact with other people? How did you form your organization, etc.?
I started searching online, internet, and I found these millions, I can say to you thousands, and after that millions of references to this experimentation. I found other victims in Canada and in the United States of America and in other countries. And that's how we formed our group.
Okay, so you found them online in a sense. You connected online. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That's how I learned about mind control technology, about psychotronic weapons. I learned this term targeted individuals, electronic harassment, gang stalking, organized stalking, and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know anything about this before it happened to me at the very end of 2005.
Correct. And because it happened to you, obviously that was the triggering mechanism. You started to be attacked, which is when you started to research it, which is very much how everybody else who's attacked in these ways, does it. People try to find out what's going on, and that's how they make connections. So did you make connections with people all across Canada? Is this neurotechnology being used in experimental form on people all across Canada?
Yes, in many, in Ontario, in Alberta, in British Columbia, in Quebec, and in Manitoba, in many provinces all over the Canada. Yeah.
And what is your current assessment in terms of, your own understanding and your own connections with all of these Canadians who are being assaulted in this fashion? What rough figures or estimates might you hazard, as to how many people are being affected in this way?
You know,
It's very hard to
we,
get
we,
these figures down.
absolutely. We have more than 70 members in our group at
Okay.
this moment, but a lot of people call me and report about the same symptoms, but they do not want to put their names, they do not want to go public.
Ah, very
Not what,
interesting.
yes, they do not want to lose their jobs, they do not want to be harassed in other ways, so they are scared to go public. But
Okay.
a lot of people, I may say to you that I contacted hundreds of people during this last 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of people, but my estimation maybe several thousand of people are victims of such experimentation in Canada. It may be. I contacted hundreds and people who decided to go public, more than 70. Around 50 people living in Canada and other in the United States of America and in other countries like in Morocco, in Russia, in Ukraine, and I cannot say to you that these technologies are only in Canada and in the United States of America. No, many countries, there are victims in many countries, including China, Russia, countries in Europe, for example, Italy and other. And by the way, I just want to tell you a story of one Russian woman. Maybe people, English-speaking people, just do not have this information because this woman is Russian-speaking. And this interview was recorded in Russian. But somebody sent me a link to this interview and I heard it. And she reported very interesting story that she started experiencing these symptoms while she was in Russia. She was a businesswoman, and as I can remember, she lived in St. Petersburg, something in this area. After that, she married an Italian man and left Russia for Italy. And the symptoms became much worse in Italy. She said in this interview that it was really a torture. She experienced enormous pain. So she said about these problems to her husband, and fortunately, her husband had some, maybe friends or relatives, I don't know, but somebody in Italian police. They started, Italian police started investigation, and unfortunately, they were not able to help her, but they directed her to Italian military intelligence. And these guys, military intelligence, they had necessary equipment, and they found several hackers in Europe and even in Latvia and Estonia and Africa. But if you, but 5 or 6 hackers
on her computer.
Yes.
Okay.
That they contacted, they affected her through their equipment and their computers. They contacted all of them and shut them down. So after help, with help of Italian military intelligence, she got rid of this mind control influence. So everything is possible. Military intelligence and maybe other military organizations, they're perfectly aware, they have necessary equipment, they're able to help us, and if they do not help us, it means that they're involved in these experiments or at least sanction them.
Exactly, they're either sanctioning or participating.
This is real story, how a Russian woman got help from Italian military intelligence.
Do we have any, sort of documented information on this person, on this?
Yeah, I have, because I sent letters with link. I can send link to this interview. I hope that it
would be wonderful.
Yes, but it is in Russian, so it...
it would have to be translated.
Yes, but you can for example, contact people who understand Russian and even official interpreters, and they will officially interpret her interview in English, and it will be documented. It will be an official testimony.
Excellent. Are you saying this is pretty recent, Galina? You heard this recently?
Maybe in 2017.
Oh, okay, that's fairly recent, right? I mean, it was last year, so that's interesting. If we could get our hands on the transcript, that would be very useful. You know, so even if we got it in Russian and then translated from Russian, that would be great.
Yes, yes, because this is testimony of a victim, that everything is possible, everything is in place, technologies that do this influence, and technologies that defend people from this influence. So everything is in place.
That's right. Basically, this story gives gives us information on so many aspects of what's going on. One, the neurotechnology exists. Two, it's being used. Three, military intelligence in Italy knows how to deal with it, which means military intelligence everywhere probably knows how to deal with it.
Of course, I do not think that American intelligence is behind Italian intelligence. I think that American and Canadian intelligences are very advanced and maybe several steps ahead of, for example, other countries. Because, you know, they're extremely well supported, financed, extremely well.
Yes, yes. So, it's curious how this woman got the help she needed, though. Was she connected to somebody higher up?
She was lucky that her husband had some connections in police. And these police guys, they just helped her.
They took pity on her and they helped her. That's amazing because, you know, we hear so many stories around the world of people being hit with this technology and being unable to be freed from it, you know, to stop these assaults. So this is a very important piece of information, and we should put out more information about it. You know, there are so many other aspects of your story as well, Galina. You know, one thing many people say is when they go to the police and they report being hit with psychotronic weapons or mind control weapons, or, you know, even if they mention the word directed energy or radiation, especially here in this country, in the US, people get carted off to a psych ward. You know, they get what's called an involuntary psych commit. The police literally arrest them and take them to a psych unit.
Yes. And what happened to me when I came to police in 2006, they immediately directed me to a psychiatrist. And I was
they did that to you too?
Yes. And I was so naive that I came to psychiatrists in June 2006. One psychiatrist, Dr. Diev, I remember his reaction. He was just ignorant. He sincerely didn't know anything about it. He was sincere. And he labeled me with delusional disorder. But another psychiatrist, Dr. Gratzer, he was aware. His reaction told me just, you know, facial expression, everything. He was aware about these experiments carried out in Canada, and he said to me that his words were, yes, I saw some immigrants in Canada with similar symptoms. When I asked him, what do you think, do you understand me that I am psychiatrically healthy, just I am a victim of this influence? He made this sign. But but after 2 months, he formed false psychiatric diagnosis, psychosis, and full
betrayal of the medical profession.
Yes, fully understanding that I was victim of this influence. Yes, so my false diagnoses are delusional disorder and psychosis.
This is how they're hiding it. This is how they're covering it up, and the medical profession is helping them. They're helping the military and the intelligence people who are running these experiments cover up the ghastly experiments by calling everybody who reports it delusional and schizoid, and actually giving them a fake diagnosis, which is so insidious and extreme.
Yes. I sued both of them, Dr. Diev and Dr. Gratzer, for ignorance, negligence, and breach of negligence and breach of trust. I cannot remember this. There are special.
Breach of trust sounds great. Yeah, I'm sure there are some legal terms, right?
There are legal terms. Maybe it's not exact legal, but breach of trust. And infliction of emotional distress, something like that. I sued them, and I provided them with papers from a doctor, toxicologist, American toxicologist. I have 2 reports from her that I am a victim of specific electromagnetic effects and have nanomaterials in my system that I used as chips to send signals to my mind and body. I provided them with these papers from American doctor, medical doctor. I provided them with papers from private investigator and psychologists. I found American psychologists who reported that as a result of this influence, I developed a post-traumatic stress disorder. But of course, I didn't have any schizophrenia or psychosis, nothing like that. No. And even with all these papers, they refuse to acknowledge. They refuse to acknowledge that I was a victim of psychotronic mind control influence. My cases against these doctors were dismissed. Why? Because Canadian judges, they demanded expert opinions from doctors in Ontario, not in Canada, but exactly, precisely in Ontario, and nothing else. And my expert opinions were from the United States of America. I was unable to find anybody in Canada and in Ontario. Doctors were scared to talk to me and to help me. This is for sure. Yes, that's why they were dismissed. And by the way, I sued police for negligence as well. And, I wanted, there was such an incident when one police officer, 2 police officers, as usual, they work in couples. 2 of them came, and one of them testified at my place that he heard that he experienced sounds in his head.
Wow.
At the same time.
Amazing.
And I hear sounds. And I wanted, when I sued police, the Toronto police, I wanted to examine this police officer and to present his testimony and to prove that Toronto police was negligent. This police officer refused to testify. He said, in no way, I will not testify. I brought a motion to the Superior Court of Justice in order to force this police officer to come to this to this place where I could examine him. And a lawyer for the Toronto police, this circus performance was in the Superior Court of Justice in Toronto. He said to Justice, to Master, it was Master, he said to him, do not let her examine this police officer. If she examines him, she will get proofs of the police negligence. And do not mention this in, how to say, scripts may be created. They audio record all hearings, but scripts may be created, and do not mention it in your script, as I can remember. But and Master said and asked him, do not tell me. I know what to do, what to insert and what to miss in these scripts. There was such a conversation, but I say to you that he said literally, do not let her examine this police officer.
He said it in court?
In court. The circus performance, it was in front of me. Do not let her examine police officer. If she examines, she will get proof of the Toronto.
This is so amazing. And in a court of law, he actually says this. So in other words, the proof is there.
Yes, there was such an interaction between lawyer for police and Master. And my motion was denied, dismissed, of course. They didn't let me examine this police officer. And actually, my case was dismissed.
Oh my gosh, but the actual testimony that you're bringing forward, let's underline that for history right here. Basically, this police officer came to your apartment and apparently was struck by the same beam that was being beamed into your brain, was also being beamed into his brain, and
Yes.
he heard the very same sounds that were being transmitted.
I cannot say to you that the very, maybe a little bit different, but he heard sounds. He heard noises, and he was affected, and maybe he was struck, he was shocked. That's why he said it to me, because
Right.
he was maybe he wasn't prepared for such things.
Right,
That's
because it
what
is an assault. It is a
and
completely
that's why he
dangerous.
was shocked and said to me, and I experienced as well. He testified, and when I
Unbelievable.
tried to examine, my motion was denied.
Mhm. That's very, very interesting how they cut you out over there. And they cut that testimony out from being on the public record. But this too is a public record, just presenting your testimony on a podcast is a public record. And you have written it down, I'm sure. And have you put this information in letters? Have you put it online? Because that too
Yes,
is
yes,
public.
in my YouTube channel, Helen Kurdin, HelenKurdin, Helen Kurdin, my channel on YouTube. Yes, I posted there.
Wonderful. We'll put the link below the video when it comes out, Galina,
Yeah,
most definitely, so
yeah,
other people can see it. And,
yes,
I have to tell you, some people who've experienced V2K have told me that when they turn it up, when they turn the volume on really loud, then it actually can be recorded outside the brain.
yes, yes,
And other people can actually hear it. So this could be
yes,
somewhat similar. Who knows what tech they're actually using, but
yes.
apparently some of this tech can be recorded outside one person's brain.
Believe it,
So,
believe in it. Yes, that's right. Agree.
yeah.
Agree. And at the beginning, sounds were so loud that I was tortured with these noises. It was literally military torture. When you see these
Yeah.
movies, how military soldiers and officers are tortured in modern prisons with insomnia,
Bright lights and
bright light, and loud noises, I was tortured the same way. It was literally military.
they sent torture. So they sent classic, definitively understood torture
Yes,
stimuli to your brain,
yes,
and so you feel it was completely military. It was a
yes,
military
yes,
intelligence style,
yes, yes.
barbaric, inhumane, medieval as well, fascist, authoritarian torture. Unbelievable.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So obviously this is human rights violations that we are speaking about, singling out human beings and assaulting.
Yes, when people say that we are slaves, I disagree. I explain to them that slaves are in much better position. At least they have their own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and their own desires,
Mm-hmm.
their own will to do or not to do. Maybe they are not allowed to do what they want to do, but they still have their own intellect. They
Mm-hmm.
still have. We are deprived of everything.
Mm-hmm.
We are deprived of.
Yes, yes. And Galina, yesterday when we were speaking on the phone, you were telling me about some of the many symptoms that you are being given currently. And you
Yes,
talked a little bit about involuntary motions and pretty much the
yes,
taking over. So are you actually talking about biorobotizing, kind of taking
yes,
over of the arms and legs?
absolutely. What I experience voices, I experience visual images, I experience a loss of memory. I experience retrieving of my memories when they decipher my memories from my childhood and just show me them like pictures or short clips, short
Oh
video.
my goodness, like video.
Like video. Yes, I experience artificial dreams. I experience induced thoughts, unusual feelings, emotions, inadequate sometimes, just strange.
Mhm.
Uh, Inadequate states as if I'm drugged. I experience false speech. I may say what I do not want to say, or they interfere and they prevent me from saying something.
Mhm.
Sometimes it happens. Sometimes. Involuntary body movements, induced actions, they can force me to do what I do not want to do, or send me a desire, very strong desire to do something that is unusual for me, for example, but I experience this desire to do something. Yes, this is something like robotizing, but what is unusual for any psychiatric disease? For example, loss of memories, they are connected with pressure. When I experience this hard pressure on my crown and forehead and temples, I may lose information. I can forget what happened to me 1 second ago. I may be fully dressed in front of my entrance door, going to go out, but I cannot remember for what for. You know, they delete
Short-term
memory.
memory loss, they just remove that.
Yes, short memory loss, yes. Or I may be disoriented in some way. I can come and totally disoriented. I cannot remember what I was going to do, why I came here. So they may, but this memory loss is connected with this pressure. I experience is as a hard pressure, sometimes so hard that I can faint.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, blurred vision. They play with my vision. For example, I see something very well in several seconds. Blurred vision, and after that, well again. So they play with my senses, with my hearing, with my sight. I experience loss of balance, coordination of movements. Yes. What else? So, and of course, content of my conversations with these perpetrators, this is not delirium. This is like conversations over cell phone. I contact with people, or maybe sometimes. I cannot exclude such possibility. I contact with computers.
So this is a two-way communication system, it sounds like, and you
bidirectional brain machine bidirectional interface. Yes.
Bidirectional brain-computer interface. So a computer is speaking to you. Do you think, therefore, that you are implanted? We're talking about a brain chip interface here.
I have official medical records that I am implanted with nanomaterials. Such precise influence may be achieved with nanomaterials. So maybe without them, I cannot say to you. But I have medical records that I am implanted with nanomaterials that are used as chips to send signals to my mind and body.
Yes, and from my research, I can definitely say that, you know, there is nanotechnology out there that behaves very much like a microchip that has transmitting and receiving capability.
Yes. Nanomaterials, they're very tiny microchips. Yes.
Yeah.
And they are, as I understand, all over my system. All over.
Right. Now, some people talk about detoxing and also about shielding. So have you tried any of these methods to kind of stop these influences on your brain? Any kind of shielding helps, or?
Yes, I do not want to mention this shielding, but I tried. Some people borrowed me some equipment. It didn't help.
Okay.
Furthermore, other members in our organization, they used even one Indian guy, a guy with Indian origin. He went to Europe and went to Faraday cage.
Okay.
But it didn't help him since we believe that we are both implanted and something is inside our bodies. So even if we go to these absolutely isolated areas in like Faraday cages, it will not help us. So we must detox. We must get rid of these implants somehow. How, I do not know.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, there is some people, naturopaths and naturalists, who advise detoxing big time, you know, and check out Tony Pantaloresco. I did an interview with him and with Suzanne Mar of ByeByeBlueSky.org. They study the chemtrails and the stuff that's in the chemtrails and stuff. They're great researchers and writers. And Tony Pantaloresco is also a naturalist and a herbalist. And he advises actually a couple different things. One of the things he says is this is all electromagnetic. So he has something called a nano bucket. It's like, you know, it's you take a bucket and you wrap electric cord around it, and you send current through it, very low voltage, I gather. So you're creating an electromagnetic field, and it's a way to get the nano out. But, you know, I would advise if people look closely at his website for
Yes,
suggestions and instructions, because
yes,
it's
yes.
dangerous playing with electricity, and, you know, you kind of have to be careful.
Just some victims report that they use this and it helps them. Some people we use that and that helps them. I believe these victims. I don't think that anybody lies. People just exchange information in order to help other people.
Yes.
We may be influenced by different technologies.
That's very true. That's a very good point to bring up. Yes.
So maybe this, how to say, these measures may help one victims, but may not help other victims. But we must try. We must try. Yes, I
That's
agree.
absolutely right. It does seem like different shielding things help different people, and different, you know, detox regimens possibly help different people as well. There's different herbs as well, you know, different kind of plant material that you can take to get the stuff out of your body, the foreign material, the heavy metals and all that, the silicon, etc. You know, there are different things to do. But in any case, it's such a horrifying scenario, isn't it? Just to be contemplated with this understanding that indeed people all around the world are being hit with neurotechnology in these ways for experimentation purposes, possibly for torture purposes. And it appears that a lot of covert agencies like the militaries and intelligence agencies are engaging in this kind of research. I wanted very much to ask you about the whole Rohinie Bisesar story, especially now that she just had her criminal trial, I gather, and she's been exonerated or found exonerated of personal responsibility.
Yes, yes,
By
yes.
way of the quote unquote untreated schizophrenia is what the judge came up and said, right? Now, you have been to the hearings, you have followed the story for a long time, as I also have, but you followed it even more than I have. You have visited Rohinie in jail.
Yes,
You have spoken to her.
yes.
I have published a letter that she wrote to you on my website. I would personally like to get back in contact with her and speak to her again and try to find out what's going on. But you have an understanding of what has happened. So, you know, I'll let you tell us the story of what you think has happened now. How she, you know, she was initially speaking about brain chip interfaces.
Yes,
But then she stopped, and now it appears that the schizophrenia story has come to the fore. So.
yes, yes. I saw her 3 times, two times in the Veneer Center for Women in Milton, near Toronto, and one time in Cambridge Psychiatric Hospital in Toronto. And she said to me, and I was almost sure that she was and she is a victim of mind control influence, because she described to me the same things, induced thoughts, involuntary body movements, induced actions. For example, just what I remember, she said to me that I am ashamed. Somebody of my friends or relatives, somebody dear for her, came to visit her in the Veneer Center, and perpetrators focused her eyes, her sight on somebody's breasts. And I understood, she said, I understood that it was something wrong, inadequate for me, and I didn't want to look at her breasts, but my sight was focused on this, and I was unable to do anything. So when she described to me such things, that she understood what was going on, but she was unable just to move her eyes, or somebody moved her body. Of course, these are symptoms of mind control. For the first time, she was placed in a psychiatric hospital, something like that, in 2014, because she assaulted somebody. There was an interaction, altercation with somebody in her family. She said to me that it was forced, it was induced, it was
Her mother. Oh, she said that. She actually referred to that incident with her mother.
Yes. It wasn't her who did it. And in 2014, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Nobody wanted to listen to her and investigate and examine her body and so on. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And in 2015, in December, she was forced to buy this small knife in dollar store in Toronto, and after that she came to this Shoppers Drug Mart and killed, absolutely unknown for her,
She
stranger,
stabbed a woman, a young strange.
young strange woman. Yes, a beautiful woman, and she did it very quickly. It took several seconds to enter, to just stab the first woman, maybe I don't, maybe the first. She saw this woman, she stabbed and immediately left, left knife on the counter, and left this store. She said it to me. She testified in court many times. It wasn't me who did it. I was forced. I was manipulated. Not just I received commands to do. I was literally manipulated. I can say to you that it is very possible because I experienced almost the same things. But what I experienced several years ago, I crossed bridge in McNichol in Toronto, and I was forced to approach edge of bridge. I didn't want, just I experienced hard pressure on my, I lost ability to think, to feel anything. I didn't feel anything, no, no fear, nothing. They just forced me to move to this edge, and they, as I understood, they were going to force me to jump down. I saw cars behind this bridge, running, not behind, below this bridge. I saw them, and I was almost forced to jump from this bridge. But this stopped. For some reason, this stopped. So I testify that person may be manipulated to such an extent that he will commit suicide or maybe commit some crime. Because in such a state, you lose any control over your body. You experience this hard pressure. You cannot think. You cannot feel. No fear, even no pain, nothing like that. They just manipulate your body as if you're a viral. I believed her 100% because I experienced the same things. I was almost forced to commit suicide, almost forced. I don't know why they stopped this, because I could easily jump from this, easily, and there is no way to resist. You do not have any control of your own body.
So can I clarify a little bit? It sounds
I believed her 100%.
I just wanted to clarify your own feelings over here. You're basically saying that there was a pressure on your head, and then you felt almost as if your sense of self-preservation, your sense of personal will, personal intention, that was taken over to such an extent, or erased to such an extent, that your body felt you were being moved. It's not like you were being biorobotized per se. You know, your arms and legs were not manipulated like puppets or whatever.
No, they were.
They were.
Yes, I was pressed very much, and I actually lost ability to think, to resist, to feel, nothing like that. They just moved, not me. My legs were moved. They forced me.
You feel your legs were moved by this external pressure that was acting through the brain. It was not you personally making your legs move.
No.
But you felt this takeover. Are you talking about EEG heterodyning and EEG cloning, perhaps?
Most likely, this influence is done by computers and cloning. Yes.
And cloning. So the harvesting of your brain waves and mixing it with somebody else's, and then piping it back through the computer system into your brain,
Yes.
so that when that person is walking, those waves are transmitted and your body moves.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. Maybe I say to you that maybe I contact with artificial intelligence and real people. If they interfere from time to time. But mostly, I contact with artificial intelligence. Yeah.
With artificial intelligence
Computers, yes.
as
Computers.
emanating from a computer is what you were
Yes,
saying.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. So basically the outcome of it, the overall effect, is that you don't have control over your own body and over your own will.
Yes, you do not have any will. You do not have any perceptions. Even pain, they can suppress pain.
They can
They can
suppress.
they can induce pain. They can send enormous pain, and they can completely suppress pain, hunger, desires, feelings. You know.
Any normal human desire or feeling or emotion they can totally remove, because it's
Yeah.
all about, receptors in the brain, etc. So they are in some way able to do this, and they're able to do this through implants, through BCI tech, and through these EEG cloning methodologies, all highly inhumane and
Yes.
highly unethical, non-consensual, etc.
Yes.
And they achieve what, I think the plan of Delgado and CIA has been for a very long time, to take over people such that they will do things against their own will.
Yes.
Right. So this is what, so Rohinie, did she speak to you about this then? Did she actually go over those events in the store where the stabbing occurred?
No, no, we didn't talk about these events. It was said in the court, I heard, that
Okay.
on that very day when she stabbed this poor woman, she went to a dollar store. She was commanded, she was forced to go to this dollar store to buy this knife. And after that, with this knife, she went to Shoppers Drug Mart, very, very fast entered this store, stabbed this woman, left knife on the counter, and left this store. And it took several minutes, several seconds. Sorry, several seconds.
Okay. Yeah, that, I think part of the story was reported in the press, but in the Canada press, the regular mainstream press, but not all of it.
Yeah.
For instance, I don't know if it was very clear that did she buy the knife and immediately go and do this thing?
Yes, as I understood in the court,
I
she
see.
bought it before, especially, specifically for this murder. She bought this knife, and after that, killed with this knife.
I see.
Okay,
Okay.
so Rohinie was adamant. She talked about implants, about mind control implants many times in the court, in the Superior Court of Justice. She insisted. When I visited her, we discussed possibility of our testifying for her in the Superior Court of Justice. We sent her our testimonies. I sent her letter with our testimonies. We collected testimonies from several victims in our organization. And we discussed it. And all of a sudden, she stopped communication. And last week, when I went to the court, I saw different person, different. She decided to admit that she was schizophrenic. And it is very possible that there was a deal. Prosecution and her lawyer, Mr. Carras, they pressed on her and offered a deal. If you insist that you are mind controlled, victim of this experimentation, you will spend next 25 years in prison. But if you claim that you are schizophrenic, if you agree with this diagnosis, you will be pronounced not criminally responsible and maybe, probably, released soon. There is such possibility that she may be released soon. So it looks like there was such a deal, because she changed her behavior, she changed her way 180 how to say
180 degrees. She swung
degree.
around. She changed her
Yes,
story. Well,
she
you know,
changed.
last year, if you remember last year, they did not find her fit for trial. What they were trying to say at this time last year was that
Yes,
she
she was
needed to
on.
be examined. She needed to be psychiatrically examined, etc.
Yeah, yes, of course. She was examined, and many times, not once, many times she was examined. And she was, when she insisted that she was a victim of mind control, her lawyer, Mr. Karas, testified that she was unable to contact him and to give him instructions when he demanded to make examinations of her body, to find implants, to detect electromagnetic influence, effects upon her. She was unfit. She was irrational, she was sick, she was crazy, she was unfit, and she was unable to give him any instructions. So what she demanded, he didn't consider as rational instructions. But when she agreed to admit that she is schizophrenic, all of a sudden she became fit and rational.
Well, they put her in the Canadian Institute, right, for mental health, and
Yes,
they drugged her. She's been taking antipsychotics, hasn't she?
yes, as I understand.
So she's been
But
through some 60-day program, I think, and then they found her fit for trial after that, and then they set the trial date, and then they went along and did it. And then I guess the news was first reported that the psychiatrist or the so-called expert stated that she was not criminally responsible.
yes. It's, okay, yes, she is not criminally responsible. She will be put in psychiatric institution, and it will be decided later what to do with her. Not now, but later.
I see. So they're
Yes,
going to hold her in this mental institution as a
yes,
mental
yes.
patient.
As long as we do not know time, how long she will be kept in this institution, we do not know. Maybe it was a part of this deal.
I see. So this would mean that now she's completely moved, as you say, out of the realm of speaking out
Yes.
about being mind controlled and being taken over in this fashion to being considered as a psychiatric patient, which means possibly she's going to be, drugged even further or experimented on even further. Who knows, right?
Of
She's going
course.
to be locked away in a mental institution, and this is what happens to people in mental institutions. All sorts of ghastly and dastardly things are done to them.
Of course.
So,
Now she agreed that she's so now it will be very, very difficult to prove that she's mind control. One thing is when person disagrees and insists, no, diagnoses are false. I am a victim. I experience this strange symptoms. It's not any. And another thing, when she admits, she agrees. No,
right.
now I don't know who will believe her.
Right. And look at the situation, look at the system and the setup. It's so stacked against her
Yes.
because at the moment she says, she needs medical attention. She needs, to be checked for BCI tech in her body or nanotech in her body. Nobody listens to her. They call her mentally ill anyway. And
Yes.
then when she accepts when she says or consents to being called mentally ill, then she's seen as a mental patient and she's consigned to an institution for life. So what they've achieved or what they've pulled off over here by taking her over is immense. They have simply destroyed her life. They have totally taken over her life.
Yes.
And they've established a huge lie as well through mainstream media coverage. Now, you actually spoke to somebody, right, in the court. Did you speak to the psychiatrist
Yes.
or the lawyer?
I spoke to this expert who testified in the court that she was schizophrenic. And I said to him, please go to the official DARPA website, read about these brain-machine interfaces. I said to him, Google this, gave him several keywords, and you will find this information. This is official. Businessmen are investing real money in mass production of this equipment because technology was developed many years ago. Nowadays, they just advance these technologies and product this equipment. Go there. And he answered to me that Google is bullshit, literally, bullshit. He doesn't believe in brain-machine interface. It doesn't exist for him.
It doesn't exist? It's a question of believing?
Yeah, he doesn't believe. Yes. This is question. Yes. Of course.
What a joke.
Yes. He doesn't believe in brain-machine interface. He doesn't believe in implants and chips and so on. I approached Canadian journalists, and the next day, by the way, he mentioned that Rohinie reported to him that she believed she was implanted with nanomaterials, and he said that you may be put under X-ray from head to toes, and you will find no nanomaterials. He didn't understand that it is impossible to detect
exactly. X-rays are not going to detect them in any way whatsoever.
He was so negligent. He was so ignorant, to the point of he was criminal. This is a criminal doctor. It cannot be that such doctors are experts in such serious murder cases. This is a shame on Canadian justice. There is no justice in Canada, no justice. Circus performance. When lawyer for police has a conversation in front of me, do not let her examine. When such experts testify in murder cases, this is circus performance. I approached Canadian journalists and asked them, please describe this doctor. Talk to him if you do not believe my words. Talk to him. Ask him about his opinion about, for example, brain-machine interface, and report that such doctors cannot be experts. It's just shame. And one of the journalists said to him, thank you that you talk about this issue. Thank you. That's it.
And that's it, so that's absolutely horrifying. If psychiatrists can completely dismiss modern day neuroscience, this stuff is in the public domain now. Brain computer chips are in the public domain. They're not even, covert operations anymore. Well, of course, being used in covert ops still, but the information, public domain.
It's not classified. It is declassified. It is open. You can go, you can read. And what this actually psychiatry is not, I do not consider is as a medicine anymore. These are scammers who do not want to admit obvious things, because as soon as they admit their psychiatry and their DSM, their Bible, DSM 4 or 5, the last version, these becomes obsolete, outdated, and actually meaningless bullshit, because this DSM doesn't take into consideration existence of modern technologies. This DSM doesn't offer any ways to differentiate symptoms of mind control and psychiatric diseases. So all this is absolutely
absolutely. I mean, this is criminal behavior, and these psychiatrists should indeed be prosecuted, because what they're trying to pull off here is an extreme deception. By ignoring modern technology, by ignoring the fact of absolute neurotechnology that is in existence today, they're able to say that,
they must be prosecuted. They must be.
These are brain problems, these are brain diseases, these are mental health issues, etc. Whereas any neuroscientist who has studied BCI tech, anybody working with artificial intelligence, cybernetics, prosthetics, it's being used in prosthetics these days to manipulate external limbs, right? Artificial limbs. Yes. Anybody could tell them that, yes, brain-computer interfaces do exist. In fact, this is not even worth talking about. These psychiatrists are incredibly criminal in this act of ignoring it. So basically, Rohinie Bisesar, it sounds like, has become the victim of various quote unquote experts who have destroyed her life. And she's somebody who worked in financial services. And, you know, I just recently interviewed Jian Liang, also somebody who has worked in financial services and who has testified that people in financial services, etc., are engaging in this kind of neurotech use on others. You know, she is a victim herself. So it's almost like if you cross the path of a powerful and connected criminal, he can throw you under the bus, enroll you in these covert programs, get people to, you know, take over your brain, send neurotech, or maybe even covertly implant you through the National Clandestine Service, no doubt, get the CIA involved, etc., and then have you commit a crime. And once you've committed a crime, and look at what's happened to Rohinie Bisesar. She's both been incarcerated and now she's in a mental institution. So she's had it both ways, you know. So incredible. It's almost like they are taking out people whom they want at will. Yes. And I remember Rohinie many times saying, I'm a good person. This is not something I would do myself. I was taken over, etc.
Yes. This is a tragedy. There are two victims. This victim, poor woman who was stabbed, and the second victim, Rohinie herself. There are two victims.
Yes, there are two victims here, exactly. And the perpetrators remain hidden, remain behind the scenes.
Yes.
It's not schizophrenia as far as you and I can tell. You know, there are deliberate human perpetrators here using dastardly technology on her.
Yes.
And they are going scot-free, you know, because the system has been set up to permit them to go scot-free.
Yes.
Unbelievable, and so tragic. But, you know, Galina, it's extraordinary that you've been able to speak with her and to relay the conversations you've had with her. I do recommend that you write it all down. I'd like to actually put another article out. I want to write my own opinion of what's happened in the court case, and I'd be happy to transmit your information as well that you are giving me here, and put it out there for people to see. Because the last word should not be that she has schizophrenia. The last word should be, let's look at the whole picture here, you know?
Yes, so, absolutely. Yes, because, yes, I believe what you described is not schizophrenia. When a person understands that external force moves his body, how it moves, against his or her will, and she doesn't want to behave to move this way. She understands it. It's not schizophrenia, it seems to me.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about in terms of all of the different technologies that are being used. And I think you've done a great job today talking about both the taking over through BCI interfaces as well as the EEG cloning that's being done, whereby, you know, literally another person whose brain waves are being modulated on top of yours, superimposed, is living inside your body to a certain extent. It's taking over whenever they apply this technology.
Yes.
So that's the kind of, you know, that's the kind of conversation we should be having today, not incessantly talking about schizophrenia and hearing voices being related to the DSM symptoms, etc. We should be talking about neuroscience, neurotechnology, BCI interfaces, and what people are doing with this technology, you know. So I think you've helped a great deal.
Yes, for example, I just want to mention another difference between mind control influence and psychiatric diseases are content of conversations. For example, what I receive, what I hear, and induced thoughts that I receive, this is not delirium. For example, my perpetrators remind me where I leave my stuff. Sometimes I leave it because I experience loss of memory. They send me, I started talking English very late when I was 44. It was difficult for me to start speaking English.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they sent to me translation from Russian to English, so I do not have to open dictionary. I don't think that this is delirium.
So this is what you're talking about, getting a download. It's as if a cell phone, you're having a two-way conversation.
Yeah, bidirectional conversation, yes. And for example, they give me suggestions, say to me what to put on or what to buy,
Oh
what not
my.
to buy. This is just exchange of opinions, exchange of ideas. Maybe not exchange. I try not to contact. I just receive this, but sometimes, rarely, it is exchange. It happens.
Yeah.
I answer, but mostly they send to me something.
And when they are doing this, Galina, is it a sounded voice, or is it almost like synthetic telepathy or a subtle inner voice? How exactly do they do it?
It may be inner voice, it may be a voice of somebody else, it may be induced thought,
I
just
see.
thought, idea, desire, thought, emotion, feeling. I feel that I want to do something. It may be in any way.
And are you able to distinguish between your own thoughts and thinking and feeling and this induced thought?
When I experience this heart pressure and my own thoughts and ability to focus and concentrate is suppressed, no, no. But when I do not experience this pressure, literally pressure, yes, I can. So
Okay,
sometimes
that's
yes, sometimes no. Yes,
very interesting. So it sounds like when they turn it up, in a sense, and they give you
yes,
this pressure, it's very hard to figure
yes,
it out.
yes,
So it's like an attempt to take over of the human brain, of your brain,
yes.
in a continuous way, which is absolutely astonishing and horrifying for all of us to contemplate. But I thank you so much for doing the work that you are doing, because you have started this organization. Actually, perhaps we should share screens briefly and show people your organization. I thought I had it up a minute ago. Let me actually pull it up and show it to people so they can see your website and go there for. Do you have anything to say to people who perhaps may need to contact you?
uh, they can go to this website and they will see, yes, they will see my phone number and email address. So,
And these are photographs right here. If you can see my screen right now,
yes, yes, I see it. Yes, I see.
okay. These are photographs of people from your group
Yes, yes,
demonstrating.
and not only, for example, this girl, she wasn't a member of our group. Just she joined us. Very nice girl. And these are protests in Toronto and Ottawa. You can see Parliament,
Yes,
Canadian
nearby.
Parliament. Yes.
Yes, Toronto and Ottawa.
So
Excellent.
they can find my email address and my phone
Okay.
number. So they are welcome to email me.
Okay. And you've got a petition, you've got articles about mind control here.
Yes, yes. But I did this website in 2016. 2 years and a half ago, so it
Mhm.
must be updated, renewed. A lot of new information, a lot.
Mhm.
You know,
I know it's really hard to keep up with all of this information because there's so much.
absolutely, absolutely new articles. For example, last week I read about an experiment that was done by several universities in the United States of America. Uh, they trained several animals, a group of animals, trained to do something. After that, they recorded their neural activities and saved it on their computers. After that, they projected these activities into brains of uneducated, silly animals.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yes, and it took several seconds instead of several weeks for these silly, uneducated rats to
Mhm.
acquire, to gain new skills.
Just seconds by
Second,
just putting
second,
in the memories and the
yeah, yeah,
brain
yeah, yeah,
waves.
yeah, yeah, yeah. This experiment was described in scientific journal. Very interesting. So stuff from the matrix.
That is very interesting, Galina. I think it would be very helpful for you to share the link to that particular study that you're talking about, and perhaps we can post that as
Yes,
well.
I have to update my website. That's right.
Yeah.
A lot of information, a lot in Russian mainstream media, a lot of information about these experiments, about neural dust, nanomaterials implanted in animals, that they achieve total control over their bodies by means of nanomaterials. A lot of information, a lot.
Wonderful. What is sort of a closing question, perhaps I can ask you, what hope do you see for this scenario? You know, we are seeing in many directions a shutdown of information, as in Rohinie Bisesar's case. But there is, as you say, a lot of new studies coming out. Neuroscientists are doing more public domain research, and now it's becoming commercialized. People like Elon Musk are, you know, openly talking about the kind
not only him, businessmen, as I can remember, company colonel, his name is Johnson, as I can remember. I can double check. Let me open, because I may, just give me 1 second.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
I will open. No.
We need to talk about precisely this in this day and age when everything's becoming commercialized and people are using, you know, the dark experimentation that's been done on so many people, barbaric, inhumane, unethical experimentation that's been done on people, covertly, stealthily. What is the hope for humanity at this point in time?
Okay, just Elon Musk and okay, sorry. Berkeley, Dragonfly. Okay, his name is Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, and his company, he's now building a company called Kernel, Kernel, the same purpose, to develop a chip for brain-machine interface to advance human being abilities.
Oh, great.
Intellect, memory, and so on.
Okay. Well,
I can read for you.
Okay, go right ahead.
He says the company aims to build a new breed of neural tools in hardware and software, ultimately in a techno-utopian way, allowing the brain to do things it has never done before. What Johnson hopes to do is gather data that could help us build a kind of interface that lets humans connect their brains to machines. Researchers can develop genetic techniques to modify neurons so that machines can read and write to neurons from outside our bodies. Or they can develop nanorobots that people will ingest into their bodies for the same purpose.
They're already doing this. They've already done this. So this is the whitewash. You know, the whitewash brigade is moving in. They're in the commercial sector over here.
Yes, it is available for everybody. It was in mainstream, and these psychiatrists, these criminal psychiatrists, they deny such facts.
Yeah, so
they work only for themselves, for their money, for their for their jobs, for their property. They do not want to lose their good life, their houses, and so on.
That's right. Yeah. So they're all maintaining the lie and maintaining the facade. So what hope do you see over here, Galina? Because, you know, your organization and many others in this country and in Europe are working to educate people to what is really going on and to educate people about the dangers and the lack of ethics here in what's going on.
Yes. My hope, if it is, I'm not sure that it is not late. Maybe it is late, but as soon as these guys understand, perpetrators, that we are just guinea pigs, we have no interest for any intelligence, police, we are nothing for them, we're just regular people. We're nothing. We are guinea pigs to test these technologies, to debug their programs, to train their personnel. But real aims are people that have authorities, justices, journalists, soldiers, officers, that only several people, the most rich and maybe several top military people, they will be free of these technologies. Or these technologies will actually enforce them, help them, and all other will be totally controlled, totally manipulated,
Yeah.
totally suppressed as soon as they understand. Maybe they will join us. If not, I hope that really artificial intelligence will find them. If not them, maybe their children. Because they affect families. What I say maybe is not, but they do not affect just, they affect families. If they start controlling one person in the family, after that they start controlling all the people in this families, with children, grandchildren, generations are affected. They do not have pity for anybody. They do not have. Even they, for example, they offer me to have a child, a baby, 12 years ago, when I, of course, I was young, to have a baby for these experiments.
Oh my gosh.
They do not have any pity. They are not humans. They are not human beings. They do not, they cannot exist on the earth. They cannot exist. Just cannot exist. Maybe artificial intelligence will take care. I hope that if artificial intelligence will have some human qualities like compassion, kindness, consciousness, these guys, they will not end good. They will not.
Galina, that's very powerfully said. You're pointing to a very bleak prospect ahead for humanity if we do not all chip in and do something about this. Basically, that there will be two classes of people: the predator-prey class, the so-called authorities, not really the journalists, but the control journalists, the MSM and the police, etc. on one side of it.
For sure, journalists will not control. They will be controlled.
Right,
They will
right.
be. Only the most rich people and people with weapons, with these technologies, will control.
So these weapons are such powerful weapons that whoever has them in their power and can use them against anyone else is in a position of power over that person and can subjugate that other person and that other group of people. So that's what's heading down the pike, is what you're saying, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren. So, and the thing is, the weapons do exist. The weapons are in the hands of the powerful and the criminal currently. That's the situation currently.
Yeah,
So,
this is public information. You can go and find this information everywhere.
So there needs to be a public conversation about the non-ethicality of this situation, and then these weapons need to be fully and absolutely exposed. People need to know about them, and people need to know about the great power that they have in their ability to take people over and to suppress will, to suppress conscience, suppress morality, suppress personal principle. So that needs to be known. So I think what we're doing here today and what you are doing with your organization is powerful and important and necessary, absolutely essential, in order to inform and educate people. So, Galina, I thank you so much for coming forward to tell the world your story. I thank you also for your commitment in going to see Rohinie Bisesar and speaking with her and relaying your conversations with her. And we'll put out more information on that shortly. I thank you for standing up and just being a person, being a beacon for humanity, really, today. Standing up and letting the world see what is going on, the truth of what is going on, and calling out to people, to all humanity, to step forward, muster up courage, and start doing something about this, because we are headed down a very dark road indeed if humanity does not do something right now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
End of humanity, end of humanity.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Galina. And we wish you all the very best in the work that you are doing. And, I do call on people to make contact with Galina. And if you need more information, go to her website, etc.
Yes, okay. Thank you for your work, for your help. I hope that we will keep in touch.
Absolutely.
We will work together. So thank you for your tireless work, that you contact people, that you make interviews, that you spread truth about these weapons, what is going on, how innocent civilian people are experimented on, tortured, and even murdered or forced to commit crimes. And real perpetrators are covered and unfortunately not punished.
And we hope that situation will change.
I hope that they will be found. People who commit these crimes and people who sanction and cover them, they will be found and they will be punished. It's impossible to forgive and to forget such things.
Yes, and especially since the weapons continue to be used and the networks that are using them remain in power, remain behind the scenes. And as you have seen in Rohinie's case, come forward and say they don't believe in Google, they don't believe in current day neuroscience. So, this lie, it's a house of lies, really, and it's bound to crumble at some point. But you and I are on the cutting edge of things, as you say, and we are helping expose it. So, feel proud, be happy, and let's move on together.
Okay. Thank you very much for your work. All the best. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Galina. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.